Look, you ever have one of those moments where you're sitting in your car after work, engine off, keys still in your hand, and you're just staring, not stressed, not crying, not panicking, just sitting there thinking, how am I still here? How am I not further along than this? You're not broke. You're not failing. Your life isn't a disaster. You've got a job, maybe a couple promotions, maybe a degree or two. Maybe you've checked off some of the boxes society told you to check off. And yet something feels off. Something feels missing. It's like everyone else was given a treasure map and you got handed a brochure for a theme park that closed 20 years ago. Stay with me, because this is the part nobody talks about. You didn't imagine it. You didn't screw up. You didn't miss some magical adulthood orientation seminar where they explained everything. The system you grew up in was designed to make you feel like you're behind, no matter how much progress you make. All of it. The money expectations, the career expectations, the lifestyle expectations, they weren't built for you. They were built to keep you chasing. Most people have no idea that they've been following rules that never actually lead them to where they want to go. And that's exactly why right now, even if you're doing everything right, you still feel like you should be much further ahead than you are. My name is Michael, and I help people understand money the way school never did. Not with hype, not with complicated equations, not with some fake guru energy, but with the truth. The truth about why you feel stuck, why you feel behind, and what's actually going on with your money and your life. And today we're going to break down the real reason you thought you'd be further ahead by now. Point 1. You were sold a timeline that never existed. Here's the thing. Most of us grew up believing adulthood would follow this neat little sequence. Graduate at 18, get some degree by 22, start a career by 23, fall in love, get married, buy a home by 27, have kids by 30, climb the ladder, retire at 65, boom, life complete. Except real life doesn't follow timelines. Life is messy. Life veers. Life throws curveballs you didn't even know existed. Nobody warned you that industries could collapse overnight, or that the job you trained for could become irrelevant before you even got good at it, or that the cost of simply being alive could rise faster than your salary ever would. But here's the part that really messes with your head. Even when you know the old timeline doesn't match the world you're living in now, some part of you still feels like you're running late. It's like your brain is operating on a script written in 1985 while your actual life is happening in 2025. So you accomplish things and still feel behind. You hit milestones and still feel anxious. You do everything right and still feel like something's off. That creeping, low-grade disappointment, that's the emotional hangover from believing in a timeline that never applied to you. And here's the part almost nobody is honest about. The people who look like they followed the timeline, most of them are faking it. They got married because they thought they were supposed to. They bought a house because everyone around them made it sound like a moral achievement instead of a financial decision. They had kids because that's just what comes next. But if you ask them privately, half of them will tell you they had no idea what they were doing either. The timeline didn't give them confidence. It gave them pressure. It gave them deadlines. It gave them anxiety dressed up as responsibility. Meanwhile, you're sitting here judging yourself for not sprinting into the same milestones that they regret sprinting through. It's absurd when you really think about it. The truth is, you're not late. You're not behind. You're not off track. You're actually the only one paying attention. You stepped off a conveyor belt everyone else was blindly riding. And that's not failure. That's awareness. That's growth. That's the first real step toward building a life that actually fits you instead of a script someone else wrote. Point 2. Your income grew, but your expectations grew faster. This is the part that stings a little. You make more money now. Almost everyone does as they get older. But the version of you from 10 years ago would look at your income today and think, if I ever make that much, I'll be set for life. Then you hit that number, and instead of feeling secure, you're wondering why your checking account still looks like it's on life support. Because here's what nobody told you. Your income went up, but your expectations didn't just go up. They scaled like they were on performance-enhancing drugs. Rent exploded. Groceries are priced like luxury goods. A night out that used to cost $20 now costs $80. And every company on the planet figured out they can quietly raise their prices because we're all too exhausted to notice. Most people never notice this. You're not living extravagantly. You're living normally in a world where normal has become financially aggressive. But here's where it gets even crazier. As your income increases, the people around you change too. You see coworkers getting new cars, friends upgrading apartments, acquaintances traveling like they're influencers, and suddenly your version of normal shifts again. You start spending to match the environment, not your goals. Lifestyle creep sneaks in disguised as treating yourself, and before you know it, every raise gets eaten alive instantly. The emotional consequence? This quiet, nagging frustration that whispers, "How am I making more but still feeling stuck?" And the punchline? You're not failing. Your cost of existing is inflating faster than any salary in the real world ever could. Point 3. You thought hard work was the strategy. Stay with me here. You were taught that hard work was the strategy. Like if you just grind your face off, show up early, leave late, skip lunch, skip breaks, skip having an actual life, everything would magically work out. Promotions, raises, opportunities, all waiting for you at the finish line like some corporate fairy tale. But stay with me, because this is the part nobody ever admits. The working world does not reward the hardest worker. It rewards the most visible worker, the most connected worker. The worker who knows how to look productive without actually destroying themselves. You know this already. You've seen someone put in half the effort you do and still end up 10 steps ahead. They stroll in late with a coffee, leave early for appointments, and somehow get labeled as having leadership potential while you're drowning in responsibilities nobody notices. And here's where it gets crazy. When hard work doesn't lead anywhere, you don't question the system. You blame yourself. You think you're not doing enough. So you double down. More hours, more stress, more burnout. Meanwhile, the people getting ahead are the ones who actually protect their energy, the ones who say no, the ones who aren't terrified of being perceived as lazy. Emotional consequence? You end up exhausted, overlooked, and quietly resentful, wondering how someone doing the bare minimum is passing you on the career highway. Punchline. Hard work is not a strategy, it's a tool. And if you don't pair it with boundaries, visibility, and leverage, all it does is drain you while someone else collects the rewards. Point 4. You mistook busyness for progress. Listen, you ever notice how most days you feel busy from the moment you wake up until the moment you collapse into bed, but you still don't feel like you actually accomplished anything? That's because somewhere along the line, you started confusing activity with progress. And honestly, most people are stuck in this trap without even realizing it. You're answering emails at 10 at night like you're preventing a global meltdown. You're in back-to-back meetings that suck the life out of you without moving anything forward. You're juggling tiny fires all day that weren't your responsibility in the first place. But here's where it gets interesting. None of that busyness moves you closer to the life you want. It just keeps you too distracted to notice that you're stuck. Example, you ever finish a full day of work, look around your apartment, your goals, your finances, and realize nothing actually changed? That's because you've been operating in reaction mode instead of direction mode. Emotional consequence? You feel overwhelmed and underaccomplished at the exact same time. It's brutal. And here's the punchline. Busyness is comfortable. It gives you the illusion of progress. It keeps you from having to confront the fact that maybe your ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. But being busy is not the same as moving forward. It's just noise disguised as productivity. Point 5. You've been saving, not building. This is where things get crazy. You've been saving. And on paper, that sounds responsible. That sounds adult. That sounds like you're doing the right thing. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Saving is step 1, the part your parents and teachers emphasized, but nobody taught you about step 2, which is what actually builds wealth. So what happens? You get good at stacking cash in your bank account, watching it grow a little, feeling proud of that number, while inflation quietly chews away at it like a financial termite. Your money isn't growing. It's decaying in slow motion. Example, you might have 10,000 or 20,000 or even more just sitting there, untouched, because you think that's the safe move. But savings accounts don't build wealth. They barely preserve it. And in today's world, even that's questionable. Most people never notice this. You're not behind because you're bad with money. You're behind because your money has been sitting on the bench instead of playing the game. Emotional consequence? You feel stuck, like you're doing everything right, but nothing's changing. And you start wondering what the hell you're missing. Punchline, you're not the problem. Your strategy is. Saving keeps you afloat. Investing moves you forward. If your money isn't working, you will always feel like you're working twice as hard to make up for it. Point 6. You thought stability would feel better than it does. Nobody warns you about this part. You finally got the stability you used to dream about. The steady job, the predictable routine, the apartment that doesn't feel like a temporary storage unit. And for a while, it felt good, safe, adult. But then something weird happened. Instead of feeling secure, you started feeling stuck. Like you climbed the ladder everyone told you to climb, got to the top, looked around, and realized you're on the wrong building entirely. Most people never notice this. They assume that once they hit a certain level of stability, they'll magically feel fulfilled. Except stability isn't fulfillment, it's just the absence of chaos. Example: you wake up, go to work, come home, scroll your phone, eat the same dinner, repeat the same routine until the days start blending together like you're living on autopilot. Emotional consequence? You start feeling guilty for wanting more. You think you're ungrateful. You think something's wrong with you because you have the stability you were told to want, but it doesn't feel like enough. Punchline: stability without purpose doesn't feel like peace. It feels like stagnation. You're not wrong for wanting more. You're wrong for thinking stability was supposed to fix everything. Point 7. You were taught to spin like you're already ahead. This one hits nearly everyone. You were taught to spin like you're already ahead. Not intentionally, not maliciously. It just happens because you're surrounded by people spending money like they're all doing fine. New cars, upgraded apartments, weekend trips that look like travel ads, dinners that cost more than your childhood birthday parties. And the wild part? Most of them aren't doing fine either. They're just really good at looking like it. But when you're immersed in that environment long enough, your brain quietly adjusts its definition of normal. Suddenly, the stuff you used to think of as splurges start feeling like basic necessities. Example: that one treat yourself night out turns into a weekly tradition. That upgraded phone you didn't really need becomes a yearly ritual. That nicer apartment feels like an emotional reset until you realize the rent is swallowing half your income. Emotional consequence? You start thinking you're irresponsible, when really you're just mirroring the spending culture around you. Here's the punchline: you're not overspending because you're reckless. You're overspending because the modern version of normal life is financially unsustainable for almost everyone. The real trap isn't luxury. It's the illusion that you're supposed to afford all of this. Point 8. You confuse movement with direction. Here's where things get interesting. You've been making moves, new job, new apartment, new projects, new responsibilities, and on the surface, it looks like progress. You're not standing still. You're not doing nothing. You're moving. But here's the part nobody ever teaches you. Movement only matters if it's in the right direction. Most people are sprinting, but they're sprinting in circles. They're exhausted, not advanced. Example: you switch jobs because you're unhappy, and for a few weeks, everything feels fresh. New coworkers, new systems, new break room coffee that actually tastes like coffee. Then a month goes by, 2 months, and suddenly you realize it's the same stress, just in a different building. Why? Because you changed the environment, not the path. Emotional consequence? You start thinking you're the common denominator in every situation. You start believing you're broken, cursed, or destined to feel stuck, no matter what you do. This is where it gets interesting. You're not lacking ambition. You're not lacking effort. You're lacking alignment. Punchline: if you don't know where you're trying to go, the world will happily keep you busy going nowhere. Point 9. You thought you'd have more energy than this. You really thought you'd have more energy than this. Younger, you pictured adult, you waking up early, hitting the gym, knocking out goals, meal prepping like a fitness influencer, then still having enough motivation left to work on a side project before bed. Instead, you get home, sit down for just a minute, and suddenly it's 11 at night and you're still in the same position, scrolling through videos you won't remember tomorrow. Most people never notice this. Adult life drains energy like it's running on battery saver mode all the time. It's not that you're lazy, it's that your brain is fried from a full day of decision-making, problem-solving, acting like everything is fine, and managing responsibilities you never realized came baked into adulthood. Example: you plan to go to the gym after work, but by the time you get home, the only thing getting lifted is your phone. Emotional consequence? Guilt. Quiet, subtle guilt that whispers, you could be doing more. And here's the punchline. You're not behind because you lack willpower. You're behind because the world demands more energy than any reasonable person actually has. Point 10. You're comparing your reality to everyone else's highlight reel. This is the non-stop pressure cooker. You think you're behind because you're comparing your real, messy, complicated life to the polished snapshots everyone else posts online. Example, someone your age just bought a house. Someone else just got engaged. Someone else just paid off all their debt. And someone else is traveling full-time because they quit their job to follow their dreams, even though their parents are probably funding half of it. Emotional consequence? You feel like you're the only one struggling. Punchline. You're comparing behind the scenes to a movie trailer. Point 11. You didn't realize you're competing in a different economy. Stay with me. You think your parents at your age were further ahead because they were better with money? No. They were operating in a world where homes weren't priced like luxury yachts and college didn't cost more than a small house. Example, your parents bought their first home on one income. You can barely get approved on two. Emotional consequence? You think it's your fault that you can't replicate their milestones? Punchline. You're not behind. The economy moved the finish line. Point 12. You never actually defined what further ahead means. This is the part nobody teaches you. You feel behind because you've never stopped to define what ahead even looks like for you. You just assumed it meant more money, more progress, more achievements, more everything. But you can't feel ahead if you never define the destination. Example, you might already be ahead in ways you've never acknowledged. Stability, emotional maturity, resilience, financial awareness, emotional consequence. You chase goals that don't belong to you. Punchline. You can't feel ahead if you never decide where ahead is. So here's the shift. You're not behind. You're not late. You're not failing. You're living in a world that raised your expectations, increased your costs, overloaded your brain, and told you it was all your fault. But it's not. You're not supposed to have it all figured out by 25 or 30 or even 40. You're supposed to learn, adjust, grow, redefine your path. You thought you'd be further ahead by now because you were never taught how progress actually works. But now you know, and now you can stop punishing yourself for being human in a world that expects you to be a machine. Slow down, rethink your direction, redefine what ahead means for you. And remember, you don't need to look successful. You don't need to look wealthy. You don't need to look impressive. You need to stop being stressed.